It's not true. And so she raised that and the drunk driving lies in another question, asking, how can people take you at your word? Similar to Kamala Harris. Like, you reverse yourself on everything. And here's Tim Walz, who just lies about everything. And listen to what he said.
You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban.
If you went through IVF, you are very clear that you went through IVF. Once again, was it you just misspoke and said IVF, that you'd used IVF? When you go through IVF, you have massive ethical concerns. You worry. You worry about the embryos that you might create and what you're going to do with them. Am I going to freeze them forever? Am I going to go back and try to use them all? These are my children. It's a difficult moral question. Been there. I was lucky enough to not wind up having to answer that because we didn't have the extra embryos. But I feel for those people who are just dying to be parents. And this is one of the tough questions they have to ask. It's agonizing. F him for trying to pretend we don't split hairs between IUI and IVF. Yes, we do split hairs. And in fact, there is a reason why a lot of conservatives would not do IVF. And I get it. I totally get it. But this is another lie to cover up for his other weird form of stolen IVF valor. Yes, it's absurd. I get it. But he's glommed on to those who have actually gone through IVF and put themselves through this and wrestled with these ethical considerations because he wanted to sound more sympathetic and like he had better standing to make the case against Trump Vance. And now it's just, no one's splitting hairs. And I speak passionately. I speak passionately. You understand? And when he gets passionate, lies come out. He was passionate about his drunk driving. He was passionate about his rank in the military. He was passionate about why he didn't go to Iraq. He was passionate about the Chamber of Commerce. He was passionate, or just using improper grammar, when he said he carried guns into war, the war in which he never fought, the war from which he cut and ran. That's Tim Walz. Okay? That's the big white blankie performing his role. And then the gall of, I certainly own my mistakes when I've made them. You know, if you drop the TH on the them, you sound folksy, and lots of people write nice articles about how avuncular and folksy you are. I own my mistakes when I make them. You're literally failing to do that right now. How did she not follow up with, will you do that here? Will you do that here? Was it a mistake to say that you were deaf, that you had a hearing problem when you didn't, when you'd been caught driving 96 in a 55? Was that a mistake? Would you like to own it? Was it a mistake? You were mistaken about the fact that your wife went through IVF? That was a mistake? You were mistaken when you said you were in war? That's a big one, George Santos. To say that you were in war when you were mistaken about your rank. By the way, we went back and looked and pulled the actual notice from the National Guard demoting him in 2005, because as you know, he never actually earned the rank of Command Sergeant Major when he retired. He was placed in that provisionally, and then he retired without having earned it, so it was withdrawn, and he went from being an E9 status with the government to an E8, and he got a notice saying your rank has been reduced as follows, and now he wants us to believe that He owns his mistakes and he speaks passionately. You guys know what's happening there. The question is, will the American people? Finally, we get to Biden's cognitive decline. She asked one question.
Trump 2024. Trump 2024.